Good morning. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. I am Pastor Mark Baze. I apologize for the delay. I am home alone with all four of the kids, and the 3-year-old was needing some help with his cartoons, and then one of the triplets is just not very happy at all. So I do apologize, but I did finally make it, even though I am 11 minutes behind the hour. So all of you who were patient enough and believed in me, here we are, finally able to make it. So great to have all of you on. I appreciate you so much for joining us. Now today, if you have any theology questions, I will be more than happy to answer them, okay? How it has been working lately is Fridays are our carryover from Theology Thursday. The good thing is I was able to pretty much get everything taken care of for Theology Thursday. So with that, if you want a theology question answered, you can submit that to me today. Otherwise, we can talk about some things that are going on in the world. There's a few matters that I want to discuss, some news just in general, but also there is some news surrounding the SBC that I'm going to talk about. And then we're going to talk about a little bit of baseball. And there's some relevance to it. I want to talk about this. So with that, first and foremost, do you remember, if you recall, the absolute tragedy when a confused woman went into, and I'm just going to warn you right now, the things I'm talking about today, I don't know if YouTube's going to let this fly. So if I get kicked off here of YouTube here in just a minute, here's what you need to do. You need to go over to worshipify.com, because Worshipify allows us to talk about whatever we want to talk about and not be worried about it. I'm going live right there, right now. So there are some things that I may say today. I don't know if it's going to get flagged or not. But this may get taken down, so you can go over to Worshipify, and then you don't have to worry. I can talk about whatever I want, and it's going to be live streamed right over there. So with that, the Nashville killer, okay? This happened, 2 years ago maybe? I don't think it was last year. I think it was probably 2 years ago. It was certainly at least a year ago, goes to the Covenant School, a private Christian school, and she murders 3 children and 3 adults. And obviously she was a confused person, identified as transgender, believed that she was a male, and she had a manifesto. Now, if you recall, in history past, the practice of almost every single mass killer, they will use the word shooter, but it's killing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're a mass murderer. Whether you drive over people, you create a bomb, or you shoot them, you're a mass killer. What they did was they released the manifesto immediately, especially if that is like think, for example, the El Paso Walmart shooter out in the parking lot. He had a manifesto. We're assuming that we're being told the truth. His manifesto is basically he's a racist, and he, wanted to kill people that were of South Central America. And the manifesto was out. Everybody could read it. The New Zealand shooter going to the mosques. I cannot remember the name of the town. It was I think it was named after a saint or something. But his manifesto released instantly. So that's the habit of what they do. There's a mass killer, we have the manifesto, everybody can read it. Unless that person has ideology that does not align with the narrative. If you have a mass killer whose ideology is slightly left of center, the manifesto does not get released. It gets buried, it is hidden, you will not find it. And that's what they did with this Covenant killer. She had a manifesto, she had a notebook, which she wrote a lot of things in. We didn't know what it said, we didn't know what it said, we didn't know what it said. We knew that the FBI had her manifesto, they wouldn't release it. And if you'll recall, several months ago, some of it was released. And just like we all knew, it was a hate crime. It was a hate crime in which she wanted to kill Christians. The school had not done, there's no evidence that the school had done anything personally to her. She just had a vendetta. She wanted, I don't know if vendetta is the right word, vendetta almost incorporates the idea that there's some revenge taking place. It wasn't that. It was just an outright hatred for these Christians. And what did it do? It pointed out the fact that these people that hold the transgender ideology are mentally disturbed. They are mentally ill. They have serious problems. Like I said, if things go down over here, jump over on Worshipify. So, once again, they suppressed the narrative, they didn't release it, and their justification was, we are worried that if the manifesto gets out, if the ideology gets out, it's going to create stereotyping and it's going to cause some false narratives being released. Now, they had no issues whenever you have some shooter mention Trump in a manifesto. It's not even that he's praising Trump. He just has the word Trump in it. Oh, automatically, he's a right-wing extremist. Here's the manifesto. He's a racist. He's a homophobe. You name it. There's all the information out there. Remember who to vote for in the next election cycle. That's how it's treated. This story was buried. Well, now there's been some more released. How this has been released, I'm not entirely sure. But they finally managed to release some pictures of this notebook. And so there have been some more documents released. I'm trying to find if I can actually give you where who released it. I don't know if the FBI did it against their will or somebody leaked it, but these are verified to be the actual pictures of the notebook. So in this notebook, I'm going to, for the sake of not using explicit language, I'm going to just give you the brief analysis of it. I'll read some of it and I'll paraphrase others in which there's bad language that occurs. In this particular case, she's writing to a friend named Paige. We don't know who Paige is. Maybe she's someone that went to the school with her. But this is what she says. Dear Paige, aren't parents manipulative? It's total ignorance when parents step in and try to change their child's environment. So the idea of parents raising their kids, seeing something that is a problem and then trying to help their kids handle growing up. Because growing up's not easy. Make them go to youth group and force Christian friends in their life because the old ones were a bad influence. I can't stand that. There's some explicit language in that statement. Parents actually believe religion can change nature. That could explain why I don't practice religion anymore. Let kids think for themselves. Listening to parents does no good, more explicit language, but to mold their premature minds into a pre-formatted program like clones do. This is exactly what the left pushes. No wonder they didn't want it released. The entire agenda of the left is kids, do not listen to your parents. They want to completely throw out a religious upbringing. They do not want children being brought to church, taught Christian values. They do not want parents raising their kids. They want government-raised children being fed all the ideology that they want them to have. The very manipulative forms teens hate and rebel to. Kids are not robots. We are the future. How often do you hear that? The children are the future. That's how it's meant to be. Two idea, one mind. That's all nature needs. Here's another writing. You did the life the way you wanted to. It was 100% your heart's desire. No one else but you that planned it. Once again, the idea of rejecting any kind of wisdom or guidance from parents. Let the children decide. Let the children decide, right? That's what they're saying, especially when it comes to hormone blockers and puberty blockers, all of those things, the parents shouldn't get a say. The children should be the ones to decide. Of course they don't want this getting out because this is in line with exactly what they're teaching, the exact ideology that they are pushing. Politicians today are pushing this very agenda. Why I admire you, to die and be with you. My ultimate plan, thought from no one else but me, but I am who I am. You are who we are. Nature is pure, its raw form. It's, once again, very disturbed individual, complete rejection of Christianity, complete rejection of religion. Parents actually believe religion can change nature. That could explain why I don't practice religion anymore. That's just repeating some more of the lines that she said. It is a secular, anti-God idea. In her notebook, she has some explicit drawings. She's a disturbed individual, and it's all aligned with the dissociation of traditional values, conservative values, and purity and honesty and decency. The torture of being raised a girl, it was only until my early 20s I finally found the answer that changing one's gender is possible. It's all, she's completely bought in. She was completely bought into this ideology. She lashes out about her mother, what she believes, how she grew up conservatively, and that LGBTQ, especially transgender in her era, was an enigma, nearly non-existent. Yeah, that's what everybody's saying. This was not a thing 5 minutes ago, but now this is the ideology being pushed. I'm getting this from the Daily Wire, by the way, a particular article released by Matt Walsh. As we continue on here, I'll read a little bit more of the article. Pain of losing a daughter. The mother's worried she's losing her daughter because, in a sense, she was the person that she had raised and given birth to, wanting to be a completely different person, rejecting the principles she was brought up with. That's not pain, that's selfishness. Just like any rest of the parents with that mindset, how could they not ever think of their own child suffering and that they hate their gender so bad they cut and want to kill themselves? I mean, she's a very disturbed person. That is the truth. This transgender ideology, these people have a mental issue. That is the reality of the situation. And we are neglecting them. We're neglecting them if we do not address the problem. If you just go along with the fantasies, the ideologies of these people, that's not love, that's not caring about them. They need actual help. And instead, we have decided, you know what, we're just going to go along with it. We're going to play pretend with them. And look at what it's resulted in. So much confusion. She should have been in an institution getting help, counseling from a pastor, something. Instead, what was she doing? She was engaging in activity that was filling her head with all this ideology and nonsense. Explicit word. Parents like them who think of themselves first and their preference of conservative religion makes them believe that the child they're given should stay that way. Once again, it all completely aligns. She goes into some serious, trying to think of the right way to put this, some explicit fantasies, even acting out some strange fantasies with dolls that she had made. This is a disturbed person. And so they wanted to bury the story because transgender ideology is completely normal, no mental issues at all, you should completely accept it. And those evil conservative Christians, those are the ones that we've got to look out for. And the title of today's show, How Conspiracies Are Created, this is how conspiracies are created. The bureaucracy, the three-letter agency, the FBI, has completely discredited itself. It has failed to do its job. It has played political pandering. It's used as a weapon. It's used as a tool of the left-wing agenda, the progressive agenda, and nobody actually trusts them. this is this would have been relevant information. If we're gonna release the manifesto, then you got to be consistent. If you're going to release the manifesto for the New Zealand, the manifesto for the El Paso shooting, Uvalde, you name it, if you're going to release the manifesto, you've got to be consistent across the board. And they have truly destroyed any credibility that they have, any trust. There is no reason to trust the FBI. And they're going to call you a crazy conspiracy theorist for it. Case in point, evidence number one. Honesty would do a whole lot of good. So we need to reject the label of a conspiracy theorist, because what a conspiracy theorist has proven to be, honestly, is just somebody that's right, and they're proven right after about 6 months. Now, I do believe that we actually went to the moon, and I'm not a flat earther, but when it comes to this kind of stuff, this is the kind of conspiracies I'm saying, yeah. Yep, I'm a believer in these matters. Who here actually believes that COVID came from a bat? I don't think there's a single person on earth who actually believes that COVID came from a bat anymore. And those that say they do, they're just lying. I think Fauci knows exactly where COVID came from. Everybody knows that the FBI is being used as a tool of the progressive bureaucratic machine. And therefore, you do not need to feel the least bit of, I don't know. I don't even know what the proper term to use other than illegitimacy in questioning those authorities. The WHO, the World Health Organization, it has no credibility. It was pandering and playing politics with China the whole time. The crazy uncle that you had that said never trust the government, yeah, he probably was right in more ways than what we would ever know. And if the government, if the bureaucracy, if the corporations, if the institutions want people to trust them, they're going to start actually having to be honest and be trustworthy, because we have too much clear evidence. So therefore, the FBI, don't take their word with the smallest grain of salt that exists. Until our cash here, we'll see how everything goes through. But let's look and see here. We got a few people on. We've got Alan on. Good morning, Alan. It's great to have you on. Appreciate you. Looks like we're skipping a little bit here on our connection. Hopefully it will catch up here in just a minute. As always, be patient with us. But hopefully it'll still work for us. Need just a second. Okay, now we're back. I do apologize for that. Dropped off just a little bit. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than others. Okay, but yeah, saying hi to everybody. Alan, great to have you on. We have Kristen on this morning. Appreciate her yesterday. She came and watched the kiddos for a few hours. Nancy, good morning. The chats are black this morning. I don't know. Maybe I don't know why. Is it normally a different background? I guess I'm looking on the live stream feed. I haven't even looked on the YouTube feed. Let me look and see. See what's going on over here. Let me see. It looks the same to me. I don't see anything looking too peculiar. Okay, let's see here. We got Jerry on. Great to have you on this morning, sir. Appreciate you. And we have Scott on. Jeremy. Jeremy, be sure to have Dr. White answer your question, because I know that you submitted the same question to him yesterday that you did for me. I want to see how he answered it, and then I'm willing to brag whenever I did a better job. Oh, man. All right, Myra's on. Great to have you on this morning. My Aunt Rebecca is on today. Aunt Becky. Hey, Mom. Good morning. Great to have you. Miss Betty Patton. Hey, Michael. Pastor Michael. Okay, I saw your messages. I apologize. I haven't gotten to you. My life's a little bit wild. I'm going to get back to you today, okay? Just hold on, okay? Have some faith in me, but I will respond to you. Del Russell, great to have you on as well. We have Chuck on. Appreciate you. And hey, Dr. White down there in the comments section, also Burton. And now with that, said hi to everybody, greeted you, thanks for joining me. That was our first segment. Now let's go ahead and get into this second half. And I do want your thoughts, okay? So now that we are are back on here and running, I want to discuss this. I saw on CNN's website, because I do try to pay attention to news, even if it's CNN. The Parkland High School massacre site. Once again, I didn't intend necessarily for this to be a topic on this issue, but here we are. It is scheduled for demolition today. So the actual building in which the murder took place, they are going to be destroying the building. They basically have left it untouched since the event. They says that there's even, if you remember, that was around Valentine's Day. There was even some candy to this, I guess this day, still sitting on the desks. They did have it scheduled to be done on Thursday, starting Thursday, I believe, of last week. Or no, Thursday of this week, I suppose. But there was some rain, which pushed the process now to today. So they are doing it today, this morning. As I was reading, apparently this is kind of a common practice. The Sandy Hook Elementary School, it was rebuilt. The Columbine High School rebuilt their library. Uvalde, they also have plans to destroy it and rebuild it. So apparently this is a common practice that is done. I am trying to think about this and put my thoughts together. I can't imagine, first and foremost, what it must be like for those families in those schools. I am very thankful that we've never had anybody in my family or even close to my family experience something like that. So I'm not going to put myself in their shoes, and I'm not going to say that their feelings for destroying the building and rebuilding is not understandable or justified. But I do want to talk about if that is the right way to handle that. Do you, if you have a tragedy take place, destroy the entire building, the entire location, and then you rebuild something else? Is that the proper way to approach it? And I'm still processing this. I'm not trying to decide or not trying to tell you exactly what the right response is. But if you truly want to have a memorial site, if you want to have a means of remembrance, why would you want to remove the very thing that stands as a testament to the event? Now, it may be very traumatic. Maybe students don't want to go into a room where they know these things happened. I can understand that. And once again, I'm not sitting here telling you, saying that it's wrong to do so. But there is a part of me that says history is history. And the past cannot be destroyed. Now, we can try, but what has happened has happened. You can try to erase things, you can lie about things, but at the end of the day, history is what history is. Maybe in society we have made an effort to remove anything that could remind us of something uncomfortable, something that we don't like, something that is terrible. Something terrible happened at the Pentagon. On September 11th, people died there. Yet, that building still stands. It was rebuilt. It was repaired. What's a stronger testament? To destroy the entire building? I almost wonder if that's not a way that the killer wins. That their impact was so great that they had to completely destroy any memory of it. Now, I guess you could argue the other way around, that the killer could say, no, there's the building. It stands as my monument to what I accomplished. But on the other hand, what is a bigger statement? Everybody knows that new building, why it's there. Now, there may be people move in at a later time and not know the history of it, but the fact is the building was built because of that event. You're not actually making that event undone. There's still a monument that stands, a memorial. There's probably going to even be, if I would imagine, there's probably a plaque on those buildings commemorating the building to the lives lost. But what if you instead repair it? There's going to be damage. There's going to be terrible sights within it. Obviously. All right, we finally reconnected. I'm trying to save the stream the best I can. Those of you that are still with us, I do apologize for our difficulties today. I saw some comments here. I'm getting back to these. The question asked, is there legislation attached to destroying and rebuilding those sites? I don't know if there's any legislation regarding it. That may be something to consider. Maybe there's like some OSHA issue that maybe the building's no longer considered safe to be in. But with that, I know that there's going to be a part of the video where you're just watching me stare at a screen for a minute because it caught up quicker than what I realized. So if you just want to jump ahead as quick as you can. But with that, I don't know if there's any legislation, and I don't know if I can even find anything. But I don't know if there is any rule regarding it. I think maybe it's just it's an action that the schools themselves decided to engage in. So therefore, I do apologize once again for our poor connection today. I don't know why everything's been so bad. Now, I don't know about Virginia Tech, if they rebuilt any of their buildings. But it makes me wonder. It would seem, though, that here's an article from 2009. It says 2 years after massacre, Virginia Tech reopens hall. So here's an article. It says, it took a while after the shootings for a consensus to emerge at Virginia Tech about what to do with Norris Hall, where most of the deaths occurred. In the midst of all the pain, grieving, and healing, some people talked of tearing down the 3-story classroom building or perhaps turning it into a memorial. But engineering professor Ishwar Puri, whose department is based in Norris, was determined to preserve it as a place to learn. People were hesitant as to whether to move back into the space, he says. I said, I'm going back and you're welcome to follow me. And unfortunately, many of my colleagues wanted to. This month marks the second anniversary of the nation's deadliest campus shooting. On Friday, Puri will help reopen the part of Norris where the violence happened. There no longer will be traditional classrooms there. Administrators feared that students could be traumatized by taking classes in the same building where the gunman murdered 30 people. The area has been reconfigured with study space, a teleconference room, and labs. Instead of the tile floors and cinder block walls, it has hardwood floors and walls of frosted glass. So they're still using it. They've kind of repurposed it. There's labs there now, and there's study rooms there. So I don't know. This seems to me like what they did at Virginia Tech is a stronger statement than what these other schools are doing. That's just kind of my opinion on the matter. I would say you don't tear it down, you move forward. Now, my aunt looked it up, said there is a federal grant process where schools do not have to pay back the money. So maybe that's one reason why they do it. You know, it's the opportunity to get a free building, I guess. I don't know if they have to do it. Does it sound like they have to, or is that an option while you're doing the research for me, Aunt Becky? But it is interesting, though. If they have the option, I don't know. What do you do with that? Now, if the building did desperately need rebuilding and you were going to rebuild it anyways, that's another issue altogether. It's just something to consider. I'm not sitting here saying that it's right or wrong to rebuild or not rebuild. It's just an interesting discussion. I noticed that on the news today, and it had me thinking, had me wondering what is the proper approach and how you would handle that, how you would go about that if you had the option to keep it or to rebuild it. So that's an interesting discussion to me. Okay, moving on from there. The SBC had an annual meeting, so switching gears now. We talked about it. They were going to be voting on an amendment, the law amendment, whether or not there was going to be an actual Constitution amendment, which would bar any woman from having the title of pastor. It needed a 2/3 majority, so 67%, and it got 61%, so it didn't pass. Now, that doesn't mean that the SBC does not hold to pastors being men. It just means that there's not an actual amendment spelling it out. The SBC still reserves the right to vote anybody out of the convention if they want. That doesn't mean that you can't still be a contributor to the cooperative program. It just means that you don't get to send messengers to the annual meeting. That's what that means. So Saddleback, as far as I know, still cooperates with the cooperative program, as from what I understand, but they don't get messengers because they do have women that are titled as pastors in the church. So therefore, the SBC did not codify it in their amendment. I said I don't see why it's necessary. I think that Scripture is very clear on the matter. I don't see a need or a reason why you have to put that in. I mean, Scripture says it itself. I don't even care what the Baptist Faith and Message says. The reality is that every time you see an elder, a bishop, it's always the husband of one wife, a man. It's always in the male, masculine gender, talking about an elder, a bishop, an overseer. There is every indication that the man is to be the head of his family, and he's to be the head of the church and have those roles and those responsibilities. Not that women don't have a role. Complementarianism is absolutely true. But when it comes to the title of pastor, that's very clear in Scripture. The SBC, they didn't nail it down. You would think if the SBC was as strongly conservative as what they probably should be, I don't know. Maybe there was enough that just realized we don't need it, it's unnecessary. It does make me wonder, though, how many of those churches in the SBC are getting a little bit soft on the matter, getting a little bit squishy on it, not going to take a hard stance. It does make me wonder. So, therefore, we'll wait and see how things end up in the next several years, whether or not this becomes another issue. I don't know if some churches are going to try to push the matter now that it didn't pass. Are they going to try to now appoint more women as pastors? It's not like there's really any SBC churches that get a say at the convention who have an actual woman who is their teaching pastor. Most of the time it is like, this is our children's pastor, and it's a female. And I once again go back to, why do we have all these pastors? I don't think you need it. I think that you need the pastor, you need the teacher, you need the preacher. He gets up there and he preaches. And then you got a Sunday school teacher, and you got this or that. You got the deacons, and there may be some SBC churches that try to appoint women as deacons or deaconesses, if you will. But that's not supported in Scripture. Again, if you look at deacons, they are always described as men. It's in the masculine. There is no debate about it. Scripture is clear on the matter. So, did you need an amendment for it? No, but is it kind of a telltale that maybe we're going to find more SBC churches trying to push the more progressive agenda? I don't know. We're going to find out. We'll see what happens. They did also elect a new president. They elected Clint Presley as their president. He was the vice president like 10 years ago. He is the pastor of, let me find it again, Hickory Grove, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina. And it's a big church. They have multiple campuses and everything. I think he's conservative. Underneath their church's website, Hickory Grove, he has they have the Baptist Faith and Message, which is what it is. There's some things about it that I'm not a big fan of. I don't have to hold to the Baptist Faith and Message. I never will hold to it because I don't see a need to hold to confessions of faith. I've got my one creed, right? No creed but the Bible, and then there it goes. And then you can try to press, somebody on and say, well, do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Well, that's a creed. I think creeds are much more formal. I think if we look at how creeds are used It's an organized thing. It has some authority behind it, whether the authority is an institution, a convention, an association. Let's just let the Bible say what it says. I don't feel the need to have a drawn out, written out statement of faith or creed, confession, you name it. But they do have the Nashville statement on here. That's an additional one that some churches have. The Nashville statement is much more concerning men, women, and those roles. They have it on their church here. The Nashville Statement, here's Article 1 of the Nashville Statement. We affirm that God has designed marriage to be a covenant, sexual, procreative, lifelong union of one man and one woman as husband and wife, and is meant to signify the covenant love between Christ and His bride, the church. All right, so let me pause. Time out. Yeah, I think their description of marriage in the first part, that's fine. Covenantal, I mean, you made vows. I guess if you want to get on a baseline level, a covenant, sure. Lifelong, I agree. That's how marriage is intended to be. One man, one woman, husband and wife. What I don't agree with, though, is that statement that signifies the covenant love between Christ and His bride, the church. We, and I will defend this again and again, are not the bride of Christ. The nation of Israel, probably if we're going to be really specific, the holy city Jerusalem is the bride of Christ. And I will always point that out. If we go to Revelation chapter 21, yes. If we look at what the Bible says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Keep those words in mind. Prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Then we get down to verse 9, and there came unto me one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials full of the seven last plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me that great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, and light, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. I think you see time and time again in the Old Testament as well, the description is always Israel and Jerusalem being that bride of Christ, being the bride of God. Therefore, I would say we need to be very careful about this repeating the same old mantra. It carries a sense of covenant theology, which I don't hold to. It carries a sense of replacement theology, which I don't hold to. So I do reject that aspect of the Nashville Convention. At least it's conservative. At least it's holding to what marriage is supposed to be. We deny that God has designed marriage to be a homosexual, polygamous, or polyamorous relationship. We also deny that marriage is a mere human contract rather than a covenant made before God. So there's some good stuff in that. I appreciate that marriage is a covenant. It's not a... Churches should not have given up the marriage aspect. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be... I think tax breaks for married couples is a very good thing. I think the government should have some investment in people being married because that's what makes your society. But I agree, churches shouldn't have given it up, and marriages need to be supported by the church. I even think that marriages should be at a church. I lost a debate with my little sister because these girls, they've got to have their special day be everything that they dreamed of. I'm just picking on her, but at least it's a good religious marriage, and they're doing things the way they need to be doing. So anyways, I'm going to pick on her on that, but I think that marriages, the church needs to have the monopoly on the marriage business. Going back to this. Article 2, we affirm that God's revealed will for all people is chastity outside of marriage and fidelity within marriage. This is absolutely correct. Churches today have gotten very laxed on all that. We aren't very strong on that matter anymore, but that's absolutely how it needs to be. Nothing good comes out of those things otherwise. We deny that any affections, desires, or commitments ever justify sexual intercourse before or outside marriage, nor do they justify any form of sexual immorality. Yeah, that's good. Good stuff there. We affirm that God created Adam and Eve, the first beings in his own first human beings in his own image, equal before God as persons and distinct as male and female. We deny that the divinely ordained differences between male and female render them unequal in dignity or worth. Okay, so that's kind of the idea that men and women are equal. We affirm that divinely ordained differences between male and female reflect God's original creation design and are meant for human good and human flourishing. We deny that such differences are... That's kind of it's a word that's been coined in recent times to try to combat the days of... to combat these modern days in which they have the idea of, well, there's the gender you identify as, and then there's the gender that you were born with. Overall, I guess he's going to be a conservative guy, but my issue is with the SBC is their theology is messed up and it's confused. So at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me. Now, the SBC is one of the world's largest Christian conventions. Some call it a denomination. So I guess it does matter, which is why I'm talking about it. But at the end of the day, okay, that's great, SBC. You are somewhat conservative. that's about all I can say for him. You are somewhat conservative and somewhat traditional. How long is that going to last, though? I don't know. I am not convinced that the SBC is going to hold out against the woke agenda forever. I just think eventually they're going to fall to it. I think that the Methodists fell to it, the Presbyterians fell to it, the Unitarians fell to it, you name it, it's going to happen. And the SBC, they're going to have to get more grounded in their theology, or it's going to get them to. It will. And I don't think that there is any way that it's going to not happen unless they get a lot more fundamental real fast. They tiptoe in that evangelical world way too much. In evangelicalism, the entire name of the game is sacrifice some things for the sake of unity, sacrifice some doctrine for the sake of bringing in the numbers, because evangelicalism, whether it's the non-denominational churches or the Baptist churches that wish they were non-denominational, they have such a weak level of doctrine, they don't have anything deeper to really be anchored by. And so if you don't hold to a doctrine of preservation, if you don't hold to a doctrine of Scripture being the only authority, not the best authority, not the supreme authority, but the only authority, eventually all of that is going to snowball into liberalism. It's just going to happen. You've got to set up the guardrails. Otherwise, you are going to be destined to follow down that path, and that's just the way it is. I see a comment here from Chuck. Question, help me understand why anyone would want to be a SBC or Southern Baptist given they don't believe the same as we do. So why be a part of any organization, not to mention all the money that they have taken in over the years? There's not necessarily any strong reason to be affiliated with the Southern Baptist. Trying to think of really the big benefit today, honestly, the only benefit, and I'm really going to say the only one, is really just the name recognition. People feel comfortable going to an SBC church because more than likely their grandma went to an SBC church or their great-grandma went to an SBC church. They may not feel as comfortable with going to a random non-denominational, and that's about the only reason. So, I mean, if you just want me to be brutally honest, you can say, well, you get to give to the cooperative program, but I don't think you technically even have to be SBC to give. I think they'll let just about anybody give to the cooperative program if you want. But then again, why do you necessarily want to give to the cooperative program? They would say, well, it's for the sake of supporting missionaries. You can support missionaries without giving to the cooperative program. You can find missionaries to support. All the independent churches do it. They just find, you can find them. Just learn about them. Look them up. They will make themselves known. Missionaries will, and you can support them and you can give to them. You don't have to do it through the IMB or the International or the North American Mission Board, but maybe that's the only other argument that you can give. You do get to support the missions that way. The problem is, look at the theology that the SBC pushes. The SBC has a lot of confused theology, so how good of a job are the missionaries doing right now? I don't know. And maybe there's some that would say it doesn't matter. You don't need to have deep theology to be a missionary. Just tell them about Jesus. I don't really buy into that. I think that a missionary, let's go back to Paul. I mean, goodness, talk about missionaries. Paul was the missionary, right? If you want to use that terminology, which missionary almost has a Catholic phrase to it, right? We get missions from it. More of a way to build the empire in a lot of ways, the truth is. But I think that you need good theology to be a missionary. I think it matters. I don't know how good of a job we are producing. But it's just kind of the world we live in right now. And I know it's not a great excuse, but what they know they're getting from a country Southern Baptist church, I'm not saying that you get this in some of the cities, but in a country church, they know the SBC is going to be conservative, and they do know that the SBC is probably going to be pretty good about certain things like salvation by faith. If you have a Church of Christ person, they know that they want to go to the Church of Christ church that's going to preach baptism for salvation. The SBC is not. It does put you into a big category that makes more people find you and expose to you. I get this question all the time. So many people ask me, why are you still SBC? Why are you still SBC? Well, right now, if I would not have been SBC, I wouldn't have got the job at my church now, and I wouldn't be able to be teaching the gospel and good sound doctrine to them. So, I don't know. It's just the times we live in. Men kind of inherit the situations, and we do the best we can with what we got. I'm 28 years old. I'm going to turn 29 next month, so I'll turn 30 next year. I've got some years to try to work on this, but this is, once again, kind of the scenario that I inherited. And there's good people left. I was having a conversation with some people from the association. Not that I meet with them a lot. It's been a number of months since I've went to a meeting. There are some still... They're not right dividing, but they're dispensational. They understand. They hold to a pre-tribulation rapture. They hold to Israel still having promises. There are people in it that there are hope for. And I do think that we can do some good with some of the people in it. But I understand your frustration. Trust me, I'm not walking around bragging to everybody that I'm an SBC preacher. I tell them I'm a preacher. And if they ask me where I preach over at Blue Baptist Church is where I preach at. And that's the name of the church we actually have out there, Blue Baptist Church. Now, the technical title is First Baptist of Blue, First Baptist Church of Blue, but we've just gone by Blue Baptist Church. I'm fine with that. I don't feel the need to be First Baptist. But with that's just my thoughts on it. I understand that there's frustration there because there are a lot of SBC churches that are very liberal, very progressive, probably even some of our own area in Oklahoma. And if you get closer to the cities, you'll probably find them all the more. I understand the frustration. I'm right there with you. But here I am. I'm where I'm at. I've inherited the situation that I've inherited, so I'm going to make the best lemonade that I can, right? But I will say this: I appreciate at least the tradition, not the tradition of theology as much as the tradition of government back off, leave me alone, let me study the Bible and teach my congregation the way I want to. So I can always appeal to that, I suppose. Kristen says, I've noticed that more conservative marriages tend to be more equal between partners than more progressive ones. Those women want their partners to be less than them, not equal. Yeah, that's what feminism is. It's not equal rights or anything like that. It's a demeaning of men, devaluing. Pastor Michael says you could go Independent Baptist if you're wanting to keep the Baptist name. I mean, if that ever did happen, and the SBC may fix all that for me. I mean, don't underestimate, to quote a politician quote, don't underestimate the SBC's abilities to mess things up. So they may fix all that for me, and we go independent on our own. So, but yeah, we'll probably keep the Baptist name. If I ever get to redo the sign, I'll have some information on the sign of the church that'll really give people, like, if you're driving by, you'll know. You'll see it and you'll think, they're different. Let's see here. Burton had a comment. I want to read this. Well, I don't think rebuilding the school doesn't make the kids less traumatized. You were talking about that somebody that you have a coworker that was in Columbine. All we can do is pray for him, whoever's affected by the murders. Yeah, that's the best we can. There's some things that you're never going to fully get over, and no matter what you do, building a new building, moving towns, you name it, you're going to carry that stuff with you. You've got to learn how to live with it. And I know that's easy for us to say, but probably all of you have been through something. You've experienced something, maybe not to that degree, but how else do you move on? It's difficult. Life is not easy. I appreciate y'all bearing with me today, and I do apologize. Normally I handle our internet drop-offs a little bit better, but it was so weird today because it was just cutting off without much warning, and then it was staying off for a while, so it had me confused. I didn't know what was happening there. All right, my last little tidbit of stuff for you before I send you off to the weekend. The Rangers and the Dodgers. They played in Los Angeles. The Rangers have not been doing great. They've been faced with a lot of injuries. They got to get it going before the All-Star break. But they played a 3-game series against the Dodgers. Now, I'm not the happiest with the Texas, I'm not happiest with Major League Baseball because they're changing the rules. I don't care if the games are shorter. I think that when you change the rules, then you're messing with how the game is played, and that's a problem. I apologize. I had my phone on loud here. Let me see. I got something here. Because there's somebody that's watching the show right now. Okay. But yes, I can, Chuck. Now, with that, here's the story that I want to tell you. The Rangers played a game, the first game of the series. They were beat by the Dodgers. Sorry, they didn't play a 3-game series, I suppose. No, they did. They did play a 3-game series. They played the Dodgers the first game of the series and got beat 15-2. All right? Now, getting beat 15-2 in baseball is humiliating. That is hard to come back from. And the Dodgers are a really good team. They've got a great team this year. They were great last year. And you start off a series in Los Angeles getting beat that badly, that's hard to come back from. But the Rangers battled back, and they won Wednesday night on an amazing throw at the plate to end the game, and they won 3-2. Well, then yesterday, they won 3-1 and won the series. To go back and win a series whenever you lose the first game by 15-2 is very impressive to me. And if you have never played sports or done anything competitive, you don't know how impressive that is. Sports and life is a mental game. You've got to be mentally tough. Whenever the hits come, you got to endure it, and you got to just say, okay, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to do better. I messed up today, or something did not go my way today. I've got to forget about it. I've got to move on. That's what you've got to do. So when it comes to this example right here, the Rangers taking 2 games out of 3 from the Dodgers, just let that be a good example for you. In life, you've got to be mentally tough. And you're going to mess up and you're going to fall short and you may get beat 15-2. And your opponent may be really good. But you've got to buckle down despite the injuries, despite the circumstances. You can make every excuse in the world to fail. But are you going to make an excuse to succeed? So as right dividers, we can have every excuse in the world that nobody agrees with us. Everybody is bought into their ideology, and there's no hope. Christianity is going to be confused until the Lord comes back. Maybe so. But we got to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and continue on, because who knows? We may just be able to come back and win the next 2 games of the series. So with that, there's my last bit of encouragement for you. Thank you for enduring with me, even though today wasn't the cleanest, the smoothest of all of our broadcasts. But this has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. We are going to be having our Jonah session number 5, I believe, on Sunday morning. We're also going to be having our Sunday sermon on Father's Day. And with that, we'll see you on Monday. Thank you very much. Whenever the hits come, you got to endure it, and you got to just say, okay, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to do better. I messed up today, or something did not go my way today. I've got to forget about it. I've got to move on. That's what you've got to do. So when it comes to this example right here, the Rangers taking 2 games out of 3 from the Dodgers, just let that be a good example for you. In life, you've got to be mentally tough. And you're going to mess up and you're going to fall short, and you may get beat 15-2. And your opponent may be really good. But you've got to buckle down despite the injuries, despite